All right, welcome in everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We had a lot of interesting feedback from you guys lately about some of the challenges facing accounting firms today.
Oh, definitely. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah, we zeroed in on, well, actually an article that caught our eye, really,
Mhm.
from TalentMine Global.
Uh-huh.
And, it's not enough to just kind of list out the problems, right?
Yeah.
We want to really dig in and understand, okay, how can accounting firms, how can they use things like staff augmentation and managed services to kind of to really be smarter, to be
Mm.
smarter about how they operate,
Uh,
especially with demands for faster reporting and all the complex regulations, automation, and of course, the big one, profitability.
Yeah.
How do you stay profitable with all this going on?
right, right. And what really jumped out at me right away, just from the start of this article, is just they really lay out just how much pressure there is in the industry. I mean, this isn't your, your parents' accounting world anymore. It's not just surviving tax season. It's a whole different ball game.
Totally. Okay, so let's kind of go through these challenges one by one here.
Yeah.
Okay. They start off by talking about, finding and keeping good people, this whole talent shortage and high turnover thing. This feels like it's more than just a headache, right? It's like a fundamental problem.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, you've got the great resignation happening on top of, a lot of the accounting workforce is getting up there in age, right? So you've got this kind of perfect storm brewing where it's not just about competition. I mean, firms are losing institutional knowledge left and right. And that's where something like, bringing in outside expertise through staff augmentation can really make a difference, right? You can plug those gaps essentially.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, and on top of that, then you've got all this what do they call it, time-consuming administrative work.
Oh yeah, that's the kicker.
All the stuff that has to get done, the bookkeeping, reconciliations, data entry, it's essential, but it's such a time suck.
Oh, it is. It is. It's like imagine you have a world-class surgeon,
Right.
right? But they're spending half their day filling out paperwork. It's necessary, but it's keeping them from doing the really important stuff, right? The
Mhm.
complicated procedures, the stuff they're
Yeah.
actually trained for.
Right.
Same thing in accounting. I mean, every hour you're spending on data entry, that's an hour you're not spending giving good advice, building those client relationships, the stuff that actually grows the
The
business.
stuff that makes you money, yeah.
Hmm.
And then, of course, that leads
Yeah.
right into the next challenge, right?
Mhm.
The high cost of just
Yeah.
of running a firm.
Hmm.
You've got rising salaries, you've got to have the latest software, you've got compliance, compliance, compliance. How do you balance all that with, most firms don't have unlimited budgets, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely not. And it's a real squeeze, right? Because it's not just about competing for talent. You've got these operational costs that are just going up and up. And the thing is, that can stifle innovation, right? If you're so focused on just keeping the lights on, you might not be able to invest in the technology that could actually save you money down the road. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, it's a real catch-22. And then, you can't forget about the human side of this, right?
Hmm.
This employee retention problem, we talk about heavy workloads, obviously tax season,
Mm-hmm.
and just maybe this feeling that there's not a lot of room for growth.
Yeah.
It's like this vicious cycle. People burn out, they leave, and then the people who stay have even more work to do.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate reality. And it's not just, it's not just the workflow, right? It's your clients. You start losing people, the client experience suffers, consistency goes out the window. And then you're spending even more money on hiring and training new people, so it just compounds the problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to think about the culture too. If you're in a firm where everyone's overworked, everyone's stressed, there's no room to grow, it creates this negative environment, and that's going to drive people away even more.
Right. It's like a downward spiral.
Exactly.
Okay, so the last challenge they talk about, and we've kind of alluded to this already, but operational complexities, just managing workflows, meeting deadlines, and of course, compliance, compliance, compliance. I mean, without good systems,
Mm.
without good automation, I mean, it's got to be a nightmare, right?
Oh, it can be. I mean, in accounting, accuracy and timeliness, those are non-negotiable. So if you're not efficient, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to miss deadlines, and that's going to cost you, in terms of money, in terms of your reputation, maybe even legal trouble. And you think about, the regulations are getting more complicated all the time. The amount of data firms are dealing with is just exploding. So yeah, you got to have the right systems in place. You got to have those streamlined workflows, or you're just not going to be able to keep up.
All right, so we've laid out the challenges, the landscape, the battlefield. Now let's get to the good stuff, right? What are these smarter solutions, these staff augmentation and managed services? Why is this shift happening? Why are firms looking beyond just hiring more in-house people?
Well, it's really about being more flexible, more efficient. Because if you're stuck with just your internal team, you have those fixed costs, you might not have all of the skills you need. So the idea is you bring in specialized help, you bring in extra resources only when you need them. So you can scale up and down as needed. You can get that niche expertise without having to, hire someone full time. It's all about adapting.
Okay, so let's define our terms here a little bit. So staff augmentation, they describe it as basically expanding your workforce. You're bringing in people, you're bringing in accountants, bookkeepers, analysts, but you're bringing them in for specific needs,
Yeah,
right?
you're adding to your existing team, but in a more targeted way. It's about filling those skill gaps, or maybe you have a project that's just, it's overwhelming your current team, so you bring in some extra help. And the key here is that the firm, they retain control, They're still managing the day-to-day, they're still handling the client relationships.
Right, okay. And then you have managed services, which is more, it's a bigger scope, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about outsourcing a whole function.
Yeah.
You know, maybe all your bookkeeping, all your tax compliance, maybe even all your financial reporting, you're just handing it off to someone else.
Exactly. You're basically saying, okay, this is essential, but it's not our core competency.
Right.
We're better off letting the experts handle this. And what that does, it frees up the firm to focus on their strengths,
Hmm.
the high level stuff, strategic advice, client relationships, that kind of thing.
The money-making stuff. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is where TalentMine Global, this is where they come in. They're saying, hey, we can do both of these things. We can do staff augmentation. We can do managed services, specifically for accounting firms.
Yeah.
So what are they offering specifically? What's their pitch?
So a few things really stand out. First, they talk about having this network of remote accounting professionals, right? And not just, anybody. They're talking ACCA, CA, certified accountants, UK qualified accountants. So they're hitting that talent shortage head on, right? They're saying, look, we can get you qualified people to do your tax prep, your reconciliations, your reporting, whatever you need.
Okay, so it's quality. It's not just about filling seats. What else jumps out at you?
They talk a lot about data cleaning and management. And I think that's really smart because, bad data, it can really slow you down.
Oh, yeah.
So if you've got a service that can come in and clean that up, get it organized, that can make everything so much smoother, so much more efficient.
Yeah, it's like laying the foundation, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Now they make this pretty bold claim, right? 70% cost savings. If that's true, that's huge. How do they say they can do that?
Well, a few things, I think. Remote work, obviously, you're not paying for office space. And then, if they're outsourcing to regions where the cost of living is lower, that can bring down labor costs. But, the key is you're not sacrificing quality.
Right.
You're getting the expertise you need at a lower price. And that can be a game changer for firms, especially these days where the margins are so tight.
Totally. Okay, so they also talk about this fast and seamless onboarding process because, bringing in new people, even temporarily, it can be a real hassle, right? Background checks, setting them up in the system, training. It sounds like they're saying, look, we can get people up and running very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's the key because in today's world, you need to be able to adapt fast, right? A client comes to you with a big project, you need to be able to scale up quickly. So if they can get, a qualified person working for you in a matter of days, not weeks, that's a huge advantage.
Right. And it takes the pressure off your existing team, too.
Yeah.
Okay, another interesting point. Optimize billable hours. So the idea is you get rid of those non-billable tasks, the data entry, the reconciliations, whatever, your in-house people. Now they can focus on the stuff that actually makes money.
Right. Your most valuable asset, it's your people. And if they're spending all their time on busy work, that's a waste. So if you can free them up to do what they're good at, what they're trained for, the client-facing stuff, the high-level advisory stuff, that's where you're going to see the real return on your investment.
Okay, makes sense. And last but not least, flexible shift management, 24/7 support. So basically they're saying, look, we can handle your workload no matter what time zone you're in, no matter how busy you are.
Exactly. And that's huge, especially if you have, international clients or you're in a business where there are certain times of year that are just crazy busy. It takes the pressure off your team. They don't have to be working around the clock, and it means you can provide that consistent service to your clients no matter what.
Okay, so they actually, to kind of prove their point, they included a case study in the article. A small to mid-sized firm that used TalentMine. What happened? What were the results?
Well, pretty impressive actually. They claim that the firm was able to cut their staffing and operational costs by 70%,
Wow.
which is, that's in line with their overall claim. They also said that they were able to get their tax filings and financial reporting done 40% faster.
That's significant.
Yeah, that's huge. And maybe most importantly, they saw a 30% increase in billable hours. So that really supports the idea that, when you free up your internal people, they can focus on the work that brings in revenue.
Yeah, it's all connected. Okay, so as we wrap up here, we've covered a lot of ground. We've looked at the challenges, we've looked at the solutions. What's the big takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to really think about?
Well, I think the main message here is that the accounting world is changing, right?
Yeah.
It's more competitive than ever, it's more complex than ever, and the old ways of doing things, they might not cut it anymore.
Right.
So if you want to scale your business, if you want to be more efficient, if you want to save money, you got to be open to new ideas. You got to be open to things like staff augmentation, managed services, finding those smarter solutions that are out there.
Yeah, it's about being adaptable, being flexible.
So for you, our listener, think about this, okay? No matter what business you're in, what if you could take some of those tasks off your plate, maybe even whole functions? What could you accomplish if you had that extra time, that extra energy to focus on what you do best? Maybe it's time to, take a look at your own operation, see where you could be more efficient, see if maybe there are some solutions out there, maybe staff augmentation, maybe outsourcing, maybe something else entirely that could help you take your business to the next level. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.